I'm 85 years old, and there's something I've carried for decades that never leaves me, not even in sleep. I lost my longest friendship because I was too proud to speak. I don't say that lightly. It's not a confession I can wash away. It lives in me the way a scar lives under the skin. Quiet, but always present. A memory that reminds me of what I chose and what I let slip. I grew up in a small town where life was measured in work, family, and routine. My father was a quiet man, practical, dependable, never one for displays of emotion. He taught me that a man shows who he is not by what he says, but by what he does. Feelings were private. Vulnerability was weakness. Fix what's broken, show up when you're needed, and endure. That lesson became the lens through which I saw the world, and I carried it into adulthood without ever questioning it. I married young. My wife and I didn't have much, just a modest home, 2 children, and the steady, comforting rhythm of everyday life. I worked with my hands most of my life, first in a small repair shop, and later managing it when the owner retired. My days had a rhythm. Wake before sunrise, coffee in the same mug, read the newspaper, drive to work, fix machines, help customers, come home, eat dinner at the same time every evening, sleep, and start again. I liked that rhythm. It gave me a sense of control, a sense of usefulness. It was simple, but it felt like safety. In that life, there was one constant: my friend. We met when we were both in our early 20s, uncertain about the future, unsure who we were, yet trying to carve our place in the world. He was from the same kind of small-town life, the same modest background, the same quiet determination. We didn't talk about feelings or ambitions, or the kind of things that make people vulnerable. We talked about work, tools, cars, sports, things men from our town talked about. And somehow, in that, we understood each other without needing words. We could sit for hours without speaking, and it would feel like conversation. That kind of connection doesn't happen often. For decades, he was always there. Birthdays, weddings, funerals, long drives, late nights, shared lunches, hours spent fixing things that didn't really need fixing. He was present without demand. I was present without demand. No speeches, no dramatic apologies, no grand gestures, just presence. And I thought it would always be enough. It wasn't. The first crack came quietly. Not with a fight, not with anger, just a disagreement about the shop. He thought I should hire someone new. I thought he was wrong. I could have explained. I could have listened. I could have opened myself. But I went quiet. I didn't want to admit I felt challenged. I didn't want to show I was hurt. Silence felt safer. Pride felt stronger. I told myself it was nothing, but it was everything. After that, silence became a habit. I let calls go unanswered, messages linger, invitations pass by without response. Conversations became short, shallow. Every time I chose pride over honesty, the distance grew a little wider. I didn't notice it at first. Life was busy. Work, family, responsibilities. He was always there, or so I thought. I assumed decades of friendship could withstand a few months of distance. I assumed time would fix what I ignored, but it doesn't. Small irritations piled up. I convinced myself they didn't matter. I told myself we'd been friends long enough that a few quiet months, or years, wouldn't change anything. I didn't see the slow erosion until it was irreversible. Then life shifted in ways I couldn't control. My wife's health began to fail, slowly at first, then with an urgency that didn't allow denial. Doctor visits, tests, medications, side effects. I learned the language of illness without wanting to. I carried it alone, because needing anyone else felt like weakness. Pride had taught me well. He called once during that time. "How are you?" he asked. I said we were managing. I didn't tell him about the nights I sat beside my wife's bed, listening to her struggle to breathe. I didn't tell him about the fear, the exhaustion, the emptiness that had crept into our home. I didn't reach out. I didn't let him in. Weeks passed. Months. Then she passed. The house changed immediately. The quiet wasn't peaceful. It was hollow. Rooms felt larger, emptier. Nights stretched endlessly. The ticking of the clock sounded louder than any conversation I had had in years. That was when I thought of him most. I imagined him sitting with me, saying nothing, letting me speak when I needed to. I imagined the understanding in his eyes, the kind of patience that only decades of friendship can give. I thought about calling him dozens of times, hearing his voice, sharing memories, and every time I stopped myself. I told myself I would call tomorrow. Tomorrow, I would find the words. Tomorrow, I would apologize. Tomorrow, I would fix what I had broken with silence. But tomorrow never came. Then I heard he was seriously ill, hospitalized, heart trouble, the kind of illness that doesn't forgive waiting. My chest tightened at the news. Urgency and fear collided in a way I had never felt before. I promised myself I would go. I would speak. I would say the words I had held for decades. I didn't. He died before I ever saw him again. The finality of it hit me harder than I could have imagined. I went through the funeral motions, standing quietly near the back, listening to others share stories I had once shared. Laughter and memories existed in the world, but no longer with me. I realized then that I hadn't lost him the day he died. I had been losing him for years. In every moment I chose silence over honesty. In every small decision to protect my pride. In every conversation I avoided. Loneliness followed in a shape grief cannot imitate. Grief softens eventually. Loneliness sharpens. It fills the corners of the house, the spaces between thoughts, the quiet evenings. It comes when I least expect it. It reminds me constantly of what is missing. I live with that now. Every morning when I pour coffee, every afternoon in the still house, every evening as the sun fades and shadows stretch across the floor, I replay the moments I dismissed, the look on his face when I withdrew, the calls I let ring unanswered, the words I should have said but didn't. The lesson didn't come gently. It came late, painfully, and without ceremony. Pride doesn't protect you. It isolates you. That's it. One lesson, simple and brutal. Nothing more. If you're watching this and you're between 30 and 50, I want you to hear it from someone who waited too long. The silence you tolerate now, the pride you feed, the words you leave unsaid, those things will not pause. People you assume will always be there might not be. The distance you allow now for what feels like a reason can become permanent. And when it becomes permanent, nothing you do can reverse it. I'm not asking you to fix everything. I'm only telling you what happens when you do nothing. Now, at 85, I sit in my house filled with quiet, with memories that exist only in my mind, and I hear the echoes of a friendship I let slip away. I think of how little it would have taken. A phone call, a simple word, an admission of hurt, a moment of humility, and I didn't do it. The silence has become part of me. He is gone, and the spaces he once filled remain empty. The weight of that absence is heavier than any grief I've known, quieter than any sound I've ever heard, and it reminds me constantly of what can be lost when pride chooses for you. I sit here 85 years old, holding on to the echoes of a friendship I let slip away, and I listen to the quiet that remains.